Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. This week my guest is Dan Cunningham, who some of you may know better as the alter ego, Tyneside institution herself, Miss Rory. In this episode, Dan tells me how he took the leap into entertainment full-time, his first pro panto, and what it was like to perform in one of the biggest theatres in the country. So please, sit back and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. My guest for today's Panto podcast is, how would you like to describe yourself, really? Could we call you a dame? Could we call you a drag artiste, performer?
I think we'll just stick with performer for now.
Performer for now.
I think, yeah, that's maybe safest to start with.
Yeah, and then we'll explore.
See what you want to call me at the end of it.
Well, yeah. Well, it's the wonderful Dan Cunningham. Hello, Dan.
Hello there.
So, we've been chatting away for hours before we even hit the record button. And this character that you created, Miss Rory, where did she come from?
Well, you know, I look back and I'm not even quite sure myself, really. She's certainly evolved over the years. I suppose it's probably best to go back to where it all began. I suppose we cast our minds back. I think it was around about 2002. There's a little bar in Newcastle on the gay scene called the Bank Bar, and at the time it was being run by Greta Lamore. Now Greta, she's still around, God love her. She's the sort of the grand doyenne of the Newcastle drag scene, and she was the manager of the bar, and I worked on the bar, and I was 18 years old. I worked on the bar, and she's like, "You want to get a frock on, dear," and all this. And I thought, well, you know, it's sort of toyed with it before, so it sort of worked on the bar in drag. It's all very good. And then Greta's like, "Oh, I need to put a little show together," and you know, Greta, she performs occasionally now, but you've got your Kathy Kirby's and your Shirley Bassey's, and I remember saying you only need two things in a show. You know, three things in a show. You need a good opening number, was invariably Liza Minnelli Cabaret. You need a slut routine, which, you know, you could do anything as a slut. And you need the glamour, the Shirley Bassey. And that's all you needed, right? So I started doing these as well. And it just sort of grew from there, really. It was almost a turning point, I think, in Newcastle's drag scene, gay scene. Some of the older ones, or the ones, should I say, who've done it for quite a while, was sort of retiring off. You know, the wonderful queens who did rock shots in the original Powerhouse and the Courtyard as was in Newcastle. And they were sort of sidling off a little bit and deciding that, you know, time to hang up the heels and whatever. So there wasn't a huge amount of competition around at the time for a newbie, thank God. So I just sort of slipped in there. And it all went from there, and started sort of DJing in drag as well. All the while having a normal job, you know. But I just sort of got hooked on this performing thing, and, you know, I was never particularly any good at it, I don't think. And I realised this mime lark isn't really for me. And I remember getting a show in the yard. You kind of knew you'd made it in the yard, the bar, if you got a show on a Sunday or a Monday night. And somebody had pulled out for this Sunday night show. Greta phoned me and she was right, you need to do the yard tonight. I think it was sort of stage time, 8 o'clock or something like that, and 40 quid. So got this sort of CD together of stuff I was doing, and I decided to speak after the opening number. I can't remember why, and I can't remember exactly what it was I said, but I said something and everybody laughed, and I thought, my God, this is quite nice, isn't it? It was almost an acceptance thing, because the rest of the show was horrific. It was almost an acceptance, and I thought, oh well, that's different, because the whole northern drag thing predominantly was, there was this sort of north-south divide, I suppose, where the majority at that point in the south were live queens, and the majority in the north, or certainly in Newcastle, were mime. And, you know, we'd get the acts up at the weekend, wonderful acts, and, you know, Dave Lane and Miss Jason and Lola Lasagna, to name a few. Trashville, Tennessee, I always remember. And they'd come up and they'd effectively talk and sing. It wasn't really the Newcastle way, you know. So I thought, well, maybe I could do that. I could never sing, but you know, I've always liked talking, and I thought, well, you know, maybe I could be funny, and it just went from there, really. And then, as I say, DJing in the bars, you know, you'd say you'd do 8 p.m. till 1 a.m. or something like that. I'd end up playing one song and just talk through the rest of it, just talk over everything, and probably not very effectively then as well. But I had that sort of buzz for performing, but I never ever expected it would be something that I would do as a living. You know, it was a Friday or a Saturday night. I had a normal job and job security that goes with it as well.
What was the normal job?
Well, I worked in cosmetics, you know, just to be a cliche. So I worked in House of Fraser, I worked in Phoenix, and then ended up in Debenhams. I was selling, peddling Prada and Comme des Garçons and Nina Ricci and Caroline Herrera fragrances. And you know, it was great, it was good. But I was surrounded by all of these wonderful women. Wonderful northern Newcastle, Gateshead, strong-willed, strong personality women, you know, working on the shop floor, and it was almost it's kind of its own microcosm, its own little sort of community, with all of these fantastic characters in it. And I do to this day feel that I've picked up a lot from them, and carried that with me. They were great. I mean, crackers, some of them. Absolutely crackers. And I really don't think that retail is like that anymore. We got away with murder. Absolutely. It was just a laugh from 10 in the morning till 6:30 at night. You know, you got on a break? Yeah. Many of you had today, about 6. Go off again. You're constantly in trouble, but I've always managed to skirt around that with some kind of faux charm.
And what kind of child then were you like? Were you quite outrageous as a child?
I don't know. I think you'd probably have to ask my parents about that. I was always interested in performing, I suppose. I remember at first school, I can't even remember, it might have been a nativity play or something like that. I remember I was a king, so it probably was a nativity play. I had a lovely crown, and my mum had made us this sort of, it was like a sort of waistcoat, jackety sort of thing. I remember it was red and had gold on it. And I was poorly just before Christmas, and I couldn't go on. I mean, obviously I had 3 understudies, but I couldn't go on. I was really upset by that. But thinking about it, I think the first time that I appeared in drag on a stage was at Richard Coates Middle School in Ponteland. It was in year 8. So how old would you be in year 8? 12? 12? I think the year before, actually, we'd done Annie Get Your Gun, and I was Buffalo Bill. A performance that is still talked about to this day. Mainly Fred Craig. But we still talk about it. But the following year, it was a specially written for middle schools, this play called Blast Off, a new school's musical, it was called. And I was cast as one of the 3 cleaners. There was Gladys, Doris and Mavis. They were the cleaners, right? So clearly the teachers who were casting this thought, right, well, he's Big Mary, that one there, Dan Cunningham. So he's going to play one of the cleaners. And again, I remember this sort of photographic memory that I've got. You know, I can't remember what I had for my breakfast, but I can remember snapshots throughout life of how we had the cleaners tabard and all that kind of thing. And going on and people laughing. I thought, there you have it. That's it. This is great. That buzz. And I don't know whether it was the drag as such, or the performance, or just the ridiculous thing of seeing this 12-year-old boy revelling in being dressed as a cleaner called, I can't remember which one I was. I have a feeling I was Gladys. But there was a great buzz around it. And that performance was, I suppose it's always in you, isn't it? And it must have all come from there. And I must have had that 12-year-old me still kicking and screaming inside. So when I was sort of cajoled into drag, as it were, yeah, I'm going to do that. And I suppose it was the glamour. as well. This glamour of perceived glamour that, maybe the 18-year-old me quite liked. The outrageousness of it, the high camp. I looked a bastard. Look back at the pictures and think, good grief, what were you doing? But you felt fabulous. Press-on sequin, that sort of foil sequin on material. Seeing a shop in the West End of Newcastle and walking past and thinking, my God, this is amazing, because they're all draped in the windows of Fenham in Newcastle, large Asian community. Fantastic fabric shops and that kind of thing. And again, being sort of 18 years old and seeing all of this wonderful sequin. It's the cheapest of the cheap sequin. It's not even sequin, actually. It's just dots of foil on naff fabric. And going into the shop, and the lady in the shop must be thinking, who the hell is this walking in now? This strange sort of teenager coming in and saying, I want a dress made. I had this silver dress. I'd sort of shoddily designed it. Silver dress with a blue fishtail on the bottom and blue across the bust and all of this. And she says, oh yes, we have a lady that can make that. I look like a tube of toothpaste, right? But my God in heaven, you were the most glamorous thing because you had this. And I really looked up to Greta as well. I still do look up to Greta. She calls herself the Queen of Tat. And my God, she is. She wears that crown with some tatty style, But it was this glamour. I've always liked the glamour of it. And I think that hooks you. But as I say, I had this normal job as well. So it was never a real job to me, the drag, the performance. It was just a little bit something extra on the side. Nothing I ever thought I would do for a living. So, I like certainty in life. I'm in the wrong business for liking certainty. I still realise that now. But I do like certainty in life. And that was something I never thought I'd get from drag or performance or showbiz.
What made you then sort of give up the daytime job?
Boulevard happened. So we've been there 10 years now. Not bad for a place that people said would last one season. So I think it was the May bank holiday in 2010. I was working at the Bank Bar in Newcastle, used to DJ and whatever. It was a bank holiday Monday, and I think must have had a day off, obviously, from the shop. And the guys who own the bank and several other bars on the gay scene in Newcastle, they caught me and they said, we want to take you over to the warehouse out the back. It's a great big ugly white building, because we're thinking about converting it into something. We want you to come and see it. I said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So I went in, standing there again, my snapshot memory. I can remember now the exact spot in that building where we stood. They said, right, well, we want to open this place up as a cabaret bar, kind of in the same vein as Funny Girls in Blackpool. I loved, still do, going down to Blackpool to Funny Girls. It's like an 18-year-old walking in there. You walk down that beautiful sort of hallway entrance to it, and then, wow, there's this like cathedral of drag. And I remember the first time I went in with my friend Stephen, again, 18 years old we were, and Betty was on stage. Betty Legs Diamond doing I think it was Jai Ho. It was like Bombay Dreams Jai Ho. So again, about 2003, yeah. And thinking to myself, my God, I've never seen anything like this before. This is like amazing. And God, it was. And thinking, wow, this is just being instantly hooked on the glamour, the comedy, the production, so lavish, incredibly lavish. Amazing Zoe up there in her box, DJ Zoe, and thinking, my God, this is just the best place on earth. So then fast forward a few years to be standing in this rickety old warehouse in the middle of Newcastle, my hometown. They would say, right, we want to create something like that here. And I remember them pointing, we're going to have seating area here, we're going to have a VIP gallery upstairs, we have the stage here. Betty Legs Diamond from Blackpool, she's left Funny Girls, she's coming to Newcastle, she's going to be the show. We're going to have a DJ box up there, you're going to be in there, we're going to have a such and such here, we're going to have this, that. I said, what? Just wait a second. Me? What? I said, oh yeah, we want you to in effect be the DJ Zoe. We want you to host the show. I said, you kidding? No. We feel that, you're the best person for that job. I thought, my goodness me, still consider myself to be sort of at the bottom of the pile, really. He says, yeah, well, you've got the crack, as it were. You've got the banter. You talk. Okay, right. Let me think about that. Yeah, and everything inside me was going, oh my God, this is amazing. This is going to be the best thing ever. This is what you've always wanted to do. But then the other half thinking, ooh, do you leave a job? Do you throw everything away, in a sense, to gamble, really, on something that may or may not work? And so as the months went on, this sort of internal conversation went on. Do I do this? Do I not do this? Am I a risk taker? I was 25 years old at the time. Am I a risk taker? Probably not. What should I do? And as it got closer at the time, I think Betty came up in the end of August, and they said, right, we had some kind of charity day on in the bar at the time, and they said, right, Betty's coming up, do like a half an hour set on stage. She'll watch you. If she likes you, it's a done deal. I think, all right, okay, right. Just put these conversations in your head to the side at the moment. So I went on, I did whatever, half an hour chatting on and a couple of songs or what have you. And Betty went, sure, yep. Well, there you go. There's the sort of, that was the beginning of the baptism of fire, as it were. Sure, yep, bloody great, you. Something like that. And that's when I had to make the decision. Do I jump into this? And it sort of heated up. It became a little bit of, I could do a couple of nights and then keep my job. So, worked in the Metro Centre. It was open some nights at 10 o'clock. So couldn't do both. Or some nights it finished at 8 o'clock. Couldn't do both. Whatever. There was just something in me was coming up with all these excuses. And they were like, well, no, because we need somebody who's going to front this, with Betty, who needs to be there all the time. We need consistency, they said. So I thought, right, that's it. I can't pass this by. They have asked me to do this. I haven't been standing there. So I'm like, I'd be quite good at that job. I didn't think I would be any good at the job, to be honest. I thought I'd enjoy it, but I didn't think it'd be all that. Right, they've asked me. Right, okay, boom, you've just got to jump. You've got to just see the precipice and free fall. And and I say to this day now, whenever anybody is wrestling with something, I say, you've got to go with your gut, and sometimes you've got to make a decision that's hard, but in your heart that you feel is going to be right. And it was the best decision I have ever made in my life. I wouldn't be the person that I am today had I not have done that. I don't know how different my life would have been. I wouldn't have had any of the things that I've got, or been to the places I've been with. Even now, like sort of my closest friends, I never would have met those people. So it was the gamble that has paid off, really. So that was the turning point, and I think that was the turning point really as a character as well. And they say always, never meet your idol, and I idolised Betty like Simon. Like, oh my God, funny girl, seeing you on stage, all this kind of carry on, and we just clicked to start with, and he remains now, a very, very, very dear friend, and he was a mentor especially in those early years. He would give us great advice. And I remember one of the first nights we'd been open, one of the bar staff walking past the dressing room and said, can you just bring me a whiskey and lemonade in? And the look that was shot around from Betty in the dressing room, what? Do not drink before you go on stage. Because, DJ in the back, have a couple of drinks when I'm on, all this kind of things. Do not drink before you go on stage, because the drink will then become your act. You'll need a drink before you go on stage. You won't be able to go on stage without a drink. The drink becomes your act. And, what does that make you? He says, just don't do it. Yeah. He also said, never go on stage with anyone funnier than yourself. She's not been on stage with me for a while now. But she is the master of her craft. Betty Leg Simon. You will not see anyone again like her. She just, I had the conversation with a mate the other day. We were talking about, I said, she just walk on stage, shoot a look, and the audience would fall about themselves. And then the next minute she'd be on high kicking, tap dancing, she's just an incredible act, and as I say, taught me a lot as well. Could never teach me to dance, so she'd say, I'd sit at the piano and I'd be playing the piano and what have you, not at work obviously, but I'd be playing away on the piano and she'd be singing along, we'd be having a gay old time and all that. Just, how the hell can you play by ear but you can't dance? I said, well, I've never, do the two go together? She said, no, generally, like, you've got fantastic musicality, you've got great rhythm to be able to play, but I have no physical rhythm whatsoever. Literally the left hand doesn't know what the right's doing. She put the simplest bits in a finale for us, right? You just walk 2, 3, 4, walk to the side, and I'd be off the stage by the end of it. Yeah. So generally she'd just keep us at the back or have us dressed as a giraffe or something like that. So I've had the most amazing 10 years at Boulevard. Betty left us in... she's not dead or anything like that. She went back to Blackpool. She left us in 2015. Which was a huge wretch because she didn't give us a huge amount of notice. 6 weeks actually, and that could have been the finish for Boulevard. That could have been sort of from the owner's point of view. That could have been right, game over. We've got 6 weeks. How are we going to find someone? We had to open a new show in 8. 6 weeks left of the show we had. 2 weeks holiday, and then a new show. And she went back to Blackpool, fair enough, fine. There was never any malice. That was the whole point that really stuck with me. There was never any like, oh, well, she's gone, blah, blah, what a bitch, all this kind of thing. I think she was sad to go as well, but sometimes, again, you've just got to make a decision about things. Granted, we could have had more notice, but whatever. Luckily, Danny Malloy, had been a friend of ours anyway. He'd worked with Betty at Funny Girls. And he was always sort of on speed dial in case anything ever did happen, in case she ever jumped ship, Miss Diamond. Strangely enough, I'd been down in London just the day before I found out that Betty was going, and I phoned Danny and said, look, she's back off to Funnies. Like, can we see you about a potential job up here? So we went down the following week. Saw her at Freedom, the bosses, John and David, with me. Said, yeah, great. Easy contract. You start. And she's brought so much to the place, really. She's... The thing with Boulevard is the product worked very, very well, right? And it worked as a partnership, really, like almost like a pyramid, in that, sort of Betty's side was one side, my side was the other side, and then everything rested on the top. And we still have that with Danny, but he's certainly sort of brought his own sort of flair and vigour to the place. A lot of people say that it's maybe a little bit more modern now. He's not afraid to explore those avenues, but it's still essentially the same product. It's still musical theatre, it's still got that edge of glamour, that showbiz. It's just almost like an updated version, but that happens, doesn't it? Things have to evolve and change, and they're still evolving and still changing.
Where did the name Miss Rory come from?
Well, the name Miss Rory came from Greta Lamore, actually. She says, you need a name. And Greta, thinking back now, was always very sort of passive-aggressive with these things. So there was a wonderful, wonderful queen who I'm sure a lot of listeners will know, Beverly Hills. Miss Beverly Hills. She's in Gran Canaria now. And she's the ultimate glamour queen. She's a wonderful person. So there's Beverly Hills, hugely well known in Newcastle. So then Greta named somebody Beverly Banks. It's quite passive-aggressive in a sense, that you're almost in somebody's shadow, So around my time of starting, there was a queen called Gale Force. And I remember as well, clear as day, Greta saying, right, we've got a gale force, like gale force wind. So we need like a storm, like a roaring storm, like a Rory storm, and that was it. And then we just cut out the storm bit, Miss Rory. It's not the best name. It's absolutely not the best name, but it's quite good in a sense that people actually think you're called Rory. So if you're walking through Tesco's or whatever, and someone's, "You all right, Rory?" Like that, you're not so embarrassed by the bananas as somebody shouting, "You all right, Anne?" Or something like, "You all right, Flossie?" or whatever. So it stuck us by, and I'm at a point now where I just unfortunately don't think I could change it.
So pantomime then.
Yeah.
Did you go much as a child?
Yeah, we did. I remember seeing Roland Rat. And I'm sure I must have been very, very young. But I'm sure it was the Theatre Royal and seeing Roland Rat, but just being dazzled. But I suppose I'm a bit of a magpie in going back to saying to walking into Funny Girls and just that initial boom, wow, my God, this is amazing. Look at it, sparkly and fabulous and showbiz and glitzy and otherworldly almost. I remember as a child thinking that, but always being fascinated as well by the dame or the wicked stepmother or the ugly sisters or something like that, because they were just so extra, as the kids say now, and I think that's a real way to explain what extra is. They were just bigger than anything in real life, and I do remember that, and being at taking the Sunderland Empire, and just thinking, my God, this is like, it's so fancy. And I didn't have a dour childhood at all, we weren't eating bread and dripping or anything like that, but it was just so, it's that sort of otherworldly thing, isn't it? It's absolute escapism, and that, I think, is something I always say about Boulevard as well. This is a place to forget about all your troubles and hopefully go home a little bit happier than when you came in. And the same thing completely applies to pantomime. I think Panto's quite lucky that it's a little fly there. Pantomime's quite lucky in that it's staged around Christmas, when people tend to be majoritively in a better mood. So you kind of got people on the right foot in there. So you're just adding to people's happiness. And I think that's very important, especially in the current climate. If only we could have had pantomime last year when everybody was really depressed. It would have been like the precursor to the vaccines, really, wouldn't it?
That little boost that we all needed.
Yeah, it would have been the pre-booster. But I think when pantomime comes back, it'll signal almost a return to normality, in that Christmas is back as well. It's so much part of people's Christmas tradition, and we didn't have a Christmas last year. We didn't have carol services, pantomime, Christmas shopping was a completely different thing. The school nativity plays, it was all sort of just battered down last year, wasn't it?
We were all locked down, weren't we?
Yeah.
As well, just before.
And it's Mame, isn't it? We need a little Christmas. They had the right idea. So I think Panto is gonna, as I say, when it does come back, is gonna be that sort of fanfare into the Christmas season.
For pantomime then, with boulevards, because when we spoke and I asked you to be on, and I remember you saying to me, "Well, I've only really done one pro panto," and I wouldn't take that, because for a start off, you're one of the headliners at one of the biggest theatres in the UK,
which is a surprise to me.
But we'll go into that in a bit.
We're
so modest about it, but you've been performing in pantomime for so many years at Boulevard, and you do the naughtier side of panto.
Of course. So the adult pantos there, and as we were saying before, in our pre-show chat, I don't know whether Boulevard's adult pantos sort of set the ball rolling, because there was none going on when we first started it, and now they're everywhere. Hey, and more power, there should be even more. Adult pantomime was something I'd never heard of. That strange noise is my little dog. He's in his wigwam. I realise this is ridiculous as I say it. I have a Pekingese dog in a wigwam in the corner of the room, and he's just sort of like looking out the patio doors going, you think, oh, she's chatting on again, is she? Yeah. This will be edited together very nice. I hope it will be anyway. So I'd never heard of adult pantomime. I thought, well, what's adult pantomime? It kind of, it does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? So it's a local producer had come in and said, right, I'm thinking about, do you think I could ask John if we could use Boulevard for this adult pantomime? I thought it's worth a go. In January, we tend to be off in January anyway, after the long Christmas run and before the spring show starts. It's, the place is sat there, it's empty, give it a go. Do you want to be in it? So, out for a laugh, me, you know. And then I got sent through the script and thought, oh, this is quite funny actually, isn't it? Oh yeah, I totally get what you mean now. Wow, this is great. And I tell you what, I was hooked from the beginning. Rory Godmother in Cinderella. Wonderful. And I thought, right, how am I going to play this? How's this going to work? You know, this Miss Rory character, Miss Rory is, to me, she is a person. She exists almost in her own right. I just help her along with it. She's a misery, really. She's a pompous, imperious sort of misery. Who she'll find the negative in anything most of the time, and people like that, because I think there's a lot of people live vicariously through that. I know I do. So I can't play the bloody fairy godmother who's like, you know, Debbie McGee, all fabulous, coming on, Babs Windsor, having a great time. So I've got to play. She's got to be a really pissed off fairy godmother. And from the first rehearsal, it just worked itself into the play that went wrong, which, as we all know, is a very difficult thing to do. It found itself as that. I don't think we couldn't have conceived that in our own right. It just sort of found its feet and it went along that way, and it was a huge success. People loved it. And it's because we all love pantomime. We've all grown up with pantomime. We've all been taken to pantomime. But the glee in the audience voices at shouting, you know, off buttons, buttons, off buttons. People loved it. People were regressing into this childlike state. My God, we're watching a panto, but we can get pissed at the same time. And, you know, what a great idea. And it was, as I say, it was just a huge success. Tom Whaley wrote it. I've known Tom for years anyway. Tom wrote it, and he wrote it well. And we just had the right people in it. You know, it's absolute people power. And it worked, and we thought, right, this could be an annual thing. Of course, then the year after, we did Aladdin, and we've done so many now. You know, most recently Dick Whittington, and it's just a joy to do in an otherwise dreary January, which is a bad time for business anyway. We were like packed out. We would say 10 shows or something like that, absolutely packed out. And it's an antidote for the January blues. You know, but people would just thrived on it. These audiences, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, actually. It was just like, I'm just thinking back to the first one, it was just strange, you know. Buttons, wow. And it's a joy to do every year. But I thought that's where it would stop for Panto for me, you know. Kind of in a sense that, you know, we have the Christmas show at Boulevard, and up to that point I'd sort of had to be there all the time. But the Sunderland thing happened kind of, it was strange in the way it happened. My sister works for ATG, and she'd rang me one day and she said, Ben Phillips, he's like the theatre director at the Empire, he wants to talk to you. I said, what for? He says, he wants you to do a show at the Empire. I said, what, like Cats? She said, no, he wants you to come and do your show at the Empire. Because at this point, you know, I was doing sort of stand-up shows in Tyne Theatre and Newcastle and what have you, around the place. He says, yeah, I'll come and see him. So, you know, spoke to Ben on the phone, come in such and such a day, went in. We hit it off straight away and we chatting on about various things. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, Ben Phillips. And I says, well, yeah, do you think the people of Sunderland want to come and see him? I said, of course they would. Anyway, by the time I'd left the office, we'd sort of shelved the idea of me doing a show at the Empire, because I'd happened to mention something about pantomime. I said, I bloody love panto. It's great fun, isn't it? I said, yeah, it's always been something that I thought I might do, but, you know, it's difficult because I'm at Boulevard and all this kind of thing. He said, would you be great in a panto here? I'd love to get you into a panto. So we left it. That's the dog. So we left it, because I think it was already cast. They were doing Peter Pan that year. And then conversations happened with UK productions. Ben spoke to them. I met various people. Anthony Williams came up to see the show at Boulevard. And by the February, I was offered that Christmas. I was like, wow, this is quite something, isn't it? You know, Boulevard were very gracious and said, you know, you could take the Christmas season off. And it just all sort of went from there. And it was wonderful. It really was, you know, one of the best experiences ever. I didn't know whether I'd be any good at it, particularly. People, well, you can't do panto, you swear too much. Well, you know, you've got to cut your cloth, haven't you? If you're a one-trick pony, you don't go anywhere. So you cut your cloth according to the audience that you've got in front of you. You know, I'll do sort of charity dinners or, you know, various types of events, and you almost have to be different at every one, you know. So I didn't at any point think that, right, this is going to be a challenge because I'm not allowed to swear. I thought this will be a challenge because it's completely structured. You know, I really understand the importance of pantomime and keeping that art form alive, really. And you can't deviate from that, otherwise it becomes not a pantomime. So I thought, right, I've really got to play this in sort of panto style, really. But, you know, it wasn't me in a sense that was cast, it was Miss Rory who was cast. So I'm playing Rory, playing, you know, Rorina Hardup or whatever. So I still had to get her in, but within these confines. And it was you know, it wasn't a challenge in that I was thinking, you know, I'm worried about this, but it was certainly a challenge that I was thinking, right, I'm ready to sort of take this on and see what Rory can do in pantomime. And I think she worked very well, really.
She did. What was it like, though, performing to children?
Oh, fantastic. Block them out. So they weren't even there. But, well, you know, a few people had said you won't enjoy the early shows, you know, the kids' shows, the school shows. You won't enjoy them. They're not great for dames. They're not great for uglies. You know, the comic has great fun with them, but they're not really interested in the rest of it. And they're at 10:15 in the morning. All right, okay, yeah, well, we'll see. Do you know, I enjoyed those shows, I think, the most. Because they're right in the run-up to Christmas, you know, so it's fever point. Absolute fizzing over. But they were great. The kids hate you. You know, and I think you've done a good job when the kids hate you. You know,
because it was yourself and Duncan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Playing the uglies.
Mm-hmm.
Or Wicked. What would you prefer, Wicked
we
or
were
ugly?
we were uglies, really. You know, I was ugly on the inside and Duncan was a mess. So no, he looked fabulous. Yeah, we were the Ugly Sisters. It has to be the Ugly Sisters, doesn't it? We've all read the story. It's the Ugly Sisters. It doesn't necessarily say that they are ugly. They're ugly people, yeah. But that was that sort of great pairing. Duncan was very, very gracious with me because, you know, unlike me, Duncan's an actor and a bloody good one, and just a gem of an absolute sweetheart, a beautiful person. So I think Duncan gave me quite a bit of advice as well. Sort of, I think I showed him how to put makeup on, and he taught me how to act. But we came together and we gelled really well, you know, and that's a sign of a person who's very easy to get on with, such as Duncan. And we had to work as one, which I don't think I'd had to do before, really. I'd always been used to being out there by myself. And luckily that worked very well with Duncan. And as I say, we became this sort of pair of absolute cows that the kids hated. But I think a lot of the mums and dads identified with, in a sense. You know, it's playing it to be snarly and vicious and whatever, but I wanted to get a certain amount of comedy in there as well. as they were saying, we want to see, like the production was saying, we want to see a bit of Rory in there as well. So you've kind of got to play it to the mums and dads, while at the same point having those moments where the kids are absolutely loathe you. The ticket tearing scene, you couldn't play with that. You couldn't just chuck in a little aside or a knowing glance or whatever, as every sister who's ever been will attest. You've got to play that, and you've got to play that in the most vicious, horrible, evil way possible. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. The whole point of you being there is to tear the ticket up and make sure that the shoe doesn't fit on your foot, and the rest is just fluff, isn't it? Really. So that ticket scene was a joy to play. And Gemma Naylor, who played Cinderella, she cried. Really bad coming off stage. She's like, "Did you see Gemma tonight? She was in absolute floods of tears." What an actress. Or just the scary thought of having me and Duncan tower over. I'm not sure which one it was. But that was just the joy that sort of brought us as performers. It's unparalleled, really, because at that point I think you're kind of doing it right, But it's my intention always to make people laugh as well. So I had to sort of rein it in a little bit, because at the end of the day, you're still a baddie. But I should imagine the uglies are the most fun baddies to play, because they're more sort of playful in a sense. They're not, you don't have that wonderful baddie scene at the beginning, like King Rat or what have you. You just sort of float along with the story rather than being in your own set scenes, as it were. You're extras, really. It's sort of headlining extras.
And then it was going to be last year. It was going to be Snow White, and obviously that had to be postponed.
Yeah.
Who are you going to be this year in Snow White?
Well, everybody thought the Wicked Queen. Everybody. And we're so surprised when I said, no, I'm going to do Dame. So there was the conversation during Cinderella, are you coming back next year? I said, well, if you have us. And I think I signed on the 7th or 8th of January for the next few years. But I'd had the conversation with director, producer, what have you. I said, I'd love to do Dame, because I don't think I could go through a whole show and not make people laugh. Oh, well, that's interesting. I think, to play a baddie, and this is me speaking probably with limited experience of pantomime anyway, to play a baddie, if I was a child or an adult going to see a pantomime, I want that baddie to be vicious and vile and stay within those perimeters. And I don't think I could do that. I really don't think I could. I mean, you look at Gareth Joyner, what a sensation he is. His Myra Dubois as a baddie, well, award-winning, But I think Gareth's a lot more disciplined than I in that. And probably within the Myra character, who is, going to take over the world. Myra Dubois needs to be on primetime Saturday night television, which she was, Britain's Got Talent. But I suppose it worked in that sense. Within my character, I don't think it would work. There's nothing to say that you can't play Dame a little more tongue-in-cheek, a little bit more almost fed up, henpecked. But baddie just wasn't for me, so I was delighted when they said, Dame. So Nurse Rorina. So I don't know what she's going to be like. I've seen the script. I'm so looking forward to it. Just to get, I suppose we're all looking forward to getting back to work, really, aren't we? But just to see what I can do with her, and I'm sure there's quite a bit.
Did Mum and Dad come and see any of the performances?
Oh, Mum, Dad, aunties, uncles, Grandma, Grandad, Nana and Grandad came along, had a great time. Sisters, the lot, everybody was in. And, I always prefer to perform when I don't know who's in the audience. This makes it more comfortable for me. But it was a really proud moment for me, having them there. You know,
Do you get more nervous then when they're in?
I suppose in a sense I must, really, somewhere deep down that must be happening. But you know, another thing that Betty Legs Diamond told us, every night's a Saturday, so just go out there and give 100%. But as I say, it was a feeling of sort of pride in a sense, as I'm sure it was for them. But it was definitely, I was very proud to have them there, and for them to come in and see what it was that I'd been banging on about for so long.
Is there any of your female relations, dare I say it, in Miss Rory?
Oh, I'm my mother. I'm my mother.
She's not listening to this.
She will be. Well, no, the amount of people that say, yeah, God, you look so much like your mum. You know, even when I haven't got the face or costume or whatever on. I mean, admittedly, she does wear a little less makeup and her hair isn't as high and the outfits maybe aren't as flamboyant. But I think I'm my mother's son. But I'm also my father's son as well, because he's got a great wit. He's got my dad's a real joker. He's very, very quick, very, very switched on. You know, so I've taken the best from both of them and created a monster.
How long did it take you then to actually get that look that you were happy with?
10 years. Completely. Even when I was sort of starting off, good grief, what a mess. Then you look back at 10 years over Boulevard and an evolution in style and technique, I suppose, as well. I mean, I always say, people say, oh my God, your makeup's amazing, all that kind of. It's really not. You know, close up, it isn't. It's colour by numbers. But, you know, it works from a distance.
And now, when you're on stages in front of the children as well,
mm-hmm.
Do you see that little boy in you? You know, imagine that it's you watching yourself.
Oh, completely. And I think it's something that the young me would very much like. And with this whole thing, this sort of drag resurgence that seems to be happening at the moment, you know, I never classed myself as a drag queen. I'm a sort of a character actor, really, you know. I'm a stand-up comedian, whatever. I never think of drag queen. I don't know why. But there's a lot of drag going around now. It's very mainstream. Like, so you RuPaul's Drag Race, that kind of thing. And kids are really, they know more about it than I do. Yeah, I don't really follow drag, as it were, but the kids know who everybody is, and you know, watch the television programs, and you know, there's a huge amount of acceptance as well. You look at stuff like everybody's talking about Jamie, which the genesis of which was in Boulevard. You know, Jamie Campbell. It was the BBC documentary Jamie Drag Queen at 16, and he came to Boulevard and did his first show there. Simon, Betty Legs, sort of mentored him, and I hosted his first show. And you know, that's on the West End now, one of the biggest and best shows on the West End. And it's all about acceptance, and it's all about being who you want to be and doing what you want to do. And kids now are doing that. I never ever felt repressed as a child. Maybe I'm lucky. In fact, you know, I am lucky not to have felt that. But now it's, as I say, there's this sort of mainly mainstream acceptance, and kids can sort of flourish in that way as well, and sort of be the person who they want to be. You know, I often talk to parents at Boulevard or out and about and whatever, and they say, oh God, yeah, my 14-year-old son, he's a drag queen. Oh, brilliant. Conversely, my 13-year-old daughter is a drag queen. Brilliant. Bring it on. You know what I mean? So, well, what do you really think about that? So I'd rather have kids expressing themselves and being the person who they want to be, rather than being depressed, suicidal, violent, you know, completely introverted or whatever. Just give them a chance. It'd be a much better world if people could just, you know, be happy. Which hopefully this new generation coming up will be. So I don't know whether that sort of helped in my casting. Then of course you get these people saying, you know, drag queens shouldn't be dames. And we got trolled, you know, on Twitter. I haven't had a lot of online abuse over the years, which is great. I mean, we've been trolled on Twitter. Tom, Whaley and I. Tom gets a bit of abuse, and I got some as well, but from the same person, which seems very strange. From various different accounts set up at different times, and it's very easy to read between the lines. We know who it is. It's somebody within the pantomime industry. I suppose if you're known as a sort of a whinger all the time, and then you set up these accounts and do exactly the same thing just with a different name, it's quite easy to read between the lines and see who it is. Whatever, it's whatever floats your boat. But one of the things that I was getting was this is not a dame. This is a drag queen. Drag queens can't be dames. Well, for all this that I say, I don't class myself as a drag queen. If we look at Lily, was a wonderful dame. Danny, amazing. Where does the dame start and the drag queen end? Can it not be at times you are a drag queen, and then at other times you are playing a dame, or is it typecasting? I'm not quite sure what it is, but I disagree with that. I think you've got to stick within the various perimeters, but there's so many different types of dames, and there's a huge spectrum, isn't there, from your manly
bloke in a frock,
welly wearing, if you will, up to who is the most glamorous dame at the moment?
That's the thing. I think that's the thing. It's about glamour.
Yeah.
If you go glamorous, then you end up being classed the drag dame.
Right.
That's my own personal opinion.
Okay.
Listener, shout me down if you want, but the more glamorous you are, the more drag you're regarded.
Right, okay. So what about, say, another dear friend of mine, Chris Hayward? Amazing costumes. Amazing. Brilliant day.
The more fabulous you are, the more likely you are to fall into that drag category.
Right.
But Chris has got the best legs in the business.
Has he not? Has he not? If you had two more, you'd be a stunning coffee table. But they're the same length as well. But this whole drag queen shouldn't be doing. Well, no, I would tend to disagree with that. A female impersonator, perhaps. But surely a dame is a female impersonator. We're getting into the ethics of it now, aren't we?
But isn't it an homage to a lady?
Of course it is. Of course it is. People say that drag is misogynistic. The furthest thing from my mind is any form of misogyny. I think you dance. You're on a fine line if you say it's a tribute to women. I think it's one of these things where you just have to finish it off saying it is what it is. And of course, drag now is not just for men. This is the thing. You have AFAB queens, which are assigned female at birth. Queens, you got men do drag, women doing drag. Trans men, trans women. Hey, it's open to everybody, isn't it? But I think the sort of the rigid sort of traditional assumption from some parts is it should look like a blokey bloke. And my God, they've worked in the past, haven't they? We stand on the shoulder of giants. But there is a certain amount of evolution in it as well. I can understand you don't want to be coming out looking like one of these sort of queens from RuPaul's Drag Race or clicky ass handy queen, all this carry on, which I just don't get. It doesn't entertain me, but good on them. I think it's just adding little bits to kind of what's gone before you. Kerry Dupree, for example, one of the best dames in the business, and certainly the most glamorous, I would say. She's just. Well, she doesn't like being called she, either, does she? Kerry. He is just... He's a work of art. He picked up that baton from Danny LaRue and is valiantly still going with it. And hopefully, even better once one of these daft restrictions are lifted and things like that. And I know Kerry will be the first one back on the road. We've booked her for Newcastle. She's brilliant. She's mesmerising. And she just adds that. She is a dame. Kerry's dame just adds that sort of firework of glamour into it, like a rocket, isn't she? But Kerry and David Dale together as sisters, perfect. Absolutely perfect. I adore David Dale. You know, that is drag to me. You know, personal opinion, yes. But, you know, fantastic, funny, glamorous. But a man in a dress. Yeah, that's the whole point. It has to be a man in a dress. And that's the gag, I believe, as well, with a dame or a sister. You know it's a man. Yeah, in some cases, it can be a man who looks almost like a woman, but you know it's a man. It has to read that way for me. So, you know, I don't sort of... I can't say I don't try to be a woman, because that's the whole point, isn't it? But, you know, I don't want people to be utterly convinced that I am a woman. And I think even in a sense that, you know, it can be escapism as well for the audience, because they're totally bound up in something that isn't real, you know, and that's great escapism. That's what it's all about. But, you know, you can't be dragging a dame, or drag queens can't be dames. It's like, yeah, whatever. Got more important things to be worrying about.
Are you a hoarder?
Am I a what?
A hoarder?
It's a hoardian. No, are you? How do you mean costumes and stuff?
Costumes.
Yeah.
Wigs.
Yeah.
Props.
Yeah. There's... it just become a bit of an obsession at times.
I think it's a condition. There should be sort of hoarders anonymous for dames and people involved in the industry.
And you're a drag pie.
Yes.
I saw Lola Lasagna put the other day. She's a drag pie. Yeah, I mean, obviously, all my costumes for Cinderella were made, or stuff that I had that was sort of altered and bits added to and whatever. I like stuff to be the way that I want it, I would say, and that's even down to sort of Boulevard. Yeah, the show stuff as were, you know, the dancers and Danny and the dancers, whatever, that all gets sorted for them. But, you know, what I wear is kind of up to me, and I don't like to wear the same thing too often, really. So there's, yeah, you know, people say, well, just sort of put it on a cycle. You haven't worn that for like 6 months. But no, let's have something new made and all that. But if you find somebody who's fantastic at you know, at creating stuff for you to wear, then it becomes a bit of an obsession, making them make you more. So there's a room full of shite upstairs. I'm not as bad as some with the wigs. I'll always find that, you know, the tight side of it is that, oh, just get it redone. So they go down to Liverpool and get redone. But costume wise, yeah, there's a lot.
And do you come up with the ideas for the costumes? Yeah.
I mean, Alan Crawford, who I had, he's just recently retired, which is a devastation in itself. Alan made all of the Cinderella stuff for me, and it was great to work with him, as he's got a wealth of sort of design experience. So I would go with an idea, and then he would add and elaborate sort of on my original sort of blueprint. But you know, people like to see the nice costumes. As ridiculous as that sounds, I think when it comes to a dame, people like to see the dressy up.
What about the more proppy kind of, you know, fairy liquid kind of bottles and things like this? Could you see yourself going down that route? Yeah. I think it's, you know, in that sense again, that I'm sort of playing Rory, playing her. That's quite fun for that sort of degradation almost of this quite stern character to come out looking a bit of a twat, which is great. You know, I could just see that there. You know, Duncan was the winner last year of the Kleenex box that UK had made for him. I think I was a powder puff, wasn't it? The sort of the legs out, and Duncan just sort of trolleyed on stage as a great big queen size box of Kleenex, and it got the laugh that it got. You know, it really, the gag really worked.
But yeah, stuff like that. And I think people do like to see it. You know, they want to come and they want to get their in a sense, that sort of panto fix is it's the production, isn't it? It's the...
Would you say they've got sort of expectations? You know, we want to see a daft costume. We want to see a bit of silliness, slosh, and things like this.
Yeah, I think people want to go and they want to hear he's behind you, and they want the ghost gag, and they want those instantly recognisable, relatable, they're almost a comfort, aren't they? Because we've had them every single year since the day dot. So now, you know, mum and dad are taking their kids. Mum and dad have grown up with that, but grandma and granddad are with them as well. And grandma and granddad remember bringing that. You know, it's generational. It spans across the generations, and it is ever changing. It is ever evolving. But at its heart, it's almost a tree with new leaves, isn't it? You know, at its heart, it's got that strong, steady, steadfast sort of trunk, which if you cut through it, all of the rings are there, and the rings are, you know, the ponies and Cinderella and the standard stuff. Can you throw sweets into the audience? Not quite sure anymore. Can you do this? Can you do that? You know, there's certain things that, you know, there's that issue of racism in Panto, which does need addressed. You know, I think one of the best thing to there's been many good things come out of the last sort of 18 months, but I think it's been amazing that we've had time to reflect on racism, its place in society. It has no place in society, and how do we sort of educate and eradicate? Is it then appropriate to have various parts of pantomime that could be taken as racist? Is it all right because it's only pantomime? Absolutely not at all. And you know, will I get hauled up for being PC or, you know, whatever other arguments go against it? You know, it's the Aladdin thing, isn't it? Is that appropriate to have PC Pong?
PC Ping, PC Pong.
Yeah, I think UK only have a Pong, or maybe a Ping. They don't have both. But Tom was very good at it. Is that appropriate now? Or is that something that's been just left for that little while too long? Would it damage the show? Put something else in. You know, I had a conversation with someone saying that, you know, where do we stand with Peter Pan? Is it appropriate to have a load of, you know, Caucasian dancers masquerading as a squaw? You know, not my decisions to make, but I think it can be used as a good sort of, it's almost like a teaching tool, isn't it, for kids? You know, you've heard it 1,000 times that Panto is often these children's first experience of theatre. So why not sort of cash in on that in a sense and make it a worthwhile one when it comes to matters surrounding racism and all that kind of thing as well. Something that would bother me would be that, you know, Boulevard, if the standing area, which would be the stalls, and I call it the poverty pit. It's maybe a tenner to stand there, or £25 to £25, £35, whatever it is, to sit down. And that's just, I think I said that on opening night 10 years ago, and it's just a joke that's kept going. But, you know, some people do prefer to stand. Fair enough, it's a tenner. And that's stuck. But I don't think, you know, in Panto, the sort of the cheap seats gag really resonates anymore, or should have a place anymore, because, you know, that might be all that these people can afford. It's an expensive business, having a family, I should imagine, but especially when it comes around to, like, you know, 4, 5, 6, however many it is, if you're trooping off to the theatre, you know. So yeah, we can only afford the gallery. Well, those kids shouldn't be made to feel any less special than the ones whose parents have bought the, you know, I don't even know how much the stalls were for us, but you know, however much the people have paid for the front row. It's a great tool at sort of lassoing these children, lassoing their imagination and lassoing their passion for theatre, which is a completely hackneyed line, but I really, really believe it. And if you send those kids away with a positive message, a nice happy ending, and a positive image of what can and does happen on a stage, then you're winning, because they're going to come back, even if it's only to Panto. Only Panto. Don't only Panto me. Oh, it's only Panto. Rubbish. It's musical theatre. In a sense, it is, isn't it? It's it's got every aspect that you would get in any musical, and then some more. So it's the most beautiful tradition, which should be really looked after and honoured. I really think it should be almost given a bit more of a pedestal than it is. I don't know. Do you think that it's coming back? Did it wane a little bit, Panto? Did Panto go a bit naff at some point?
Yeah? Yes, but there's parts of Panto that have to be naff. Mm-hmm. I think that when you've got things such as the ghost gag, it's like having your Christmas dinner without Brussels sprouts. Like them or not, they've got to be there.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a ghost gag or something of that ilk that's of that venue. And I think it's important as well with the venue to keep the local people that form of regularity, that they know that they're going to get something every year. And also it's creating that family atmosphere.
Yeah.
You now being at Sunderland, I can't imagine you being anywhere else. Mm-hmm. It's going to be your home now for your second year.
Yeah.
And you've said that you are signed up as well for future years. It's going to be your home. And you're going to be the face on the poster. Does that feel weird as well when you see your face on these billboards? In the concept of Panto, though.
Yeah, I tend not to look.
Well, there I am on the back of the bus.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, in that sense, it was strange. And we've done a lot of advertising, whatever, Boulevard over the years. I think it was the metros that were the strangest, because it was on every second window on the metros, and the amount of, I couldn't believe I knew that many people who use public transport, to be quite honest with you. But the amount of WhatsApps and whatever I'd get from just sat next to you on the bus, sat next to you on the metro, hey, of mates, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then it's a great gig when you think about it, because it's so local to us. As you say, it's a huge, great barn of a theatre, and it's a panto that people love. It's part of someone's tradition, and it's part of the North East. And I adore the North East. I champion the North East. Wherever I can. So it's great to be involved in that sort of Northeast tradition, I suppose. Many a morning I drive in and think, wow, good grief. How on earth has this happened?
Could you see yourself playing the Hamlet of dames, Mother Goose?
Well, if they were stupid enough to offer it and the money was right, yeah. Yeah, maybe in a few years. I'll give anything a go. But Mother Goose, again, it's just not... Well, it's had a bit of a resurgence, hasn't it? Would that come to Sunderland? I don't know. I know the Theatre Royal, just over the river there, they're very edgy with their titles. Humpty Dumpty, of course, was meant to be making a comeback after however many years, and it's sold. And they've got a great team, Danny and Clive and dear Chris over there, and that's a great. I think Michael Harrison has got completely the right idea in knowing that he's got a theatre there that's going to sell for how long's their run? It's like 17 weeks or something.
Something like that. But it's trust as well, isn't it? Trust in the audience.
Yeah.
and gaining that trust that they know that they're going to come and see Danny and Clive or you, and they know what they're getting. They don't know what they're going to get, but they know that they're going to get something and they're going to enjoy it, and it's money well spent.
It's that point of established act. So Danny and Clive and Chris have been at the Theatre Royal for so long now that Michael has, by having them in there, he's built up a fan base, and with that fan base, as you say, trust. So it's the perfect place to try something new, which ultimately the rest of the country, hopefully, will benefit off, because then he can put it in other places. And that's sort of it. He's sort of planted the seed there, hasn't he? And hopefully that'll flourish.
Well, it's like chocolate bars. I didn't know this until I moved up this way, that more often than not, Cadbury's and Mars will try out a product in the northeast first.
Never. Really?
Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
They do a lot of trials for new products up in the northeast.
Oh, right.
And then if they adopt them up here, they roll them out nationally.
I didn't know that. See, northeast, amazing.
I've only been up in 19 years, so...
I didn't know that. I wish they'd bring back fuse bars, but we can go completely off piste here if I start talking about chocolate, because that's just...
What would you have done then had you not been involved in performing?
I don't know. Although I had a conversation with, funny enough, our boss at Boulevard, John, who's a really dear friend after these 10 years. He says, I don't think you'd still be doing it. I said, oh, what? So I don't think you're just stuck in the bank and DJ'd or anything like that. He says, I think you'd have given up on drag and just had a nice sort of easy life, as it were. And yeah, I probably would have. I don't know. Sometimes I would like to, have a bit of a sliding doors moment. As long as I didn't have to leave this life. A bit of a sliding doors moment and see what would have happened.
Because earlier on when we were talking, you said there might have been sort of a religious route you might have taken when you were younger.
Oh yeah, when I was younger, up to mid-teens, I always thought I was going to go into the church. I thought maybe a career in the priesthood, which you'd have quite a few priest friends now, and one of them had said not so long ago, he said, well, it's not all that different. You still sort of like wear a dress and talk to people. Yeah. Not saving souls. Dealing with plenty of arseholes. Not saving souls. But that sort of quickly dissipated. Whatever sort of religious vocation I had dissipated when I came of age. But yeah, I mean, what would have... God, could you imagine what that would have been like?
Father Rory.
Yeah, Father Rory. Yeah, great. Packing in the pews. It's Sister Act the musical, really, isn't it? like Sheila Hancock.
Could you imagine though, Miss Rory being in something like Sister Act?
Could I? No, because I think she's too much of a character. To play. No. No, and I can't explain why. I just can't. I'll probably come up with a really good answer about 10 o'clock tonight. Yeah.
I could see that Miss Rory being this sort of character in the mainstream. So actually playing Miss Rory as a character in serious drama, perhaps.
Yeah. But then, of course, when you go into serious drama, you run down the route of, would it have to be something that had been sort of written...
Comical drama.
Yeah.
Because Myra's appearing in a play at the moment.
Yeah. She's in Death Drop in the West End. So, which I haven't been able to get down and see, actually. But seemingly, rave reviews, which is fabulous. So yeah, that I mean, it's interesting to to be able to sort of diversify. And I think it says a lot of where we are sort of societally now, that this sort of art form is being not just accepted but celebrated as well, and more of it. I say, you know, it's we need more of it.
Did you get the Panto blues when your run finished?
I didn't have time for the Panto blues because we finished. We had a weekend off. Did we have a weekend off? No, we went straight into adult Panto, and then adult Panto goes straight into the spring show, and then the spring show finished when COVID hit. So I think that's one of the good things as well about adult Panto. You haven't got time to sit around. You don't have a dull January. I was really quite upset that it had all finished, but I didn't have time to sit around and dwell on it. You know, which was a benefit. I'm still in touch with you know, a fair few. We've got a WhatsApp group that we just tend to send each other offensive memes on,
Of course, yeah.
and hoping, please God, to get down to maybe Manchester, which is a central point for a lot of us, and get to see them all for a night at some point over the summer. Not quite sure when. So you've got sort of Scotland and London, a couple of us, well, really Scarlett, myself and Tom here in the northeast, and, you know, Duncan's sort of Manchester way. So hopefully we can just all descend or ascend depending on our geography, and see each other. But it's great, you know, after nearly 2 years we're still pretty much every day all chatting on. And I think that's why that show worked so well, because everybody got on. There was no sort of bitchiness, no one-upmanship. People just gelled and got on with it. And I'm a great believer, if you can get on with the job. And that certainly was the case there. With a ball, pardon the pun.
What was it like then playing on a stage that size?
I don't think it's a stage that size. I think it's an auditorium that size. You know, you look out and you've a wall of people in front of you. The balcony comes out quite close to the stage in Sunderland, so you know you don't see an awful lot of the stalls sort of exposed from above, as it were. But it's just a huge, great chasm of a space, and thankfully it was, you know, for I think 99% of the time was very full. They had a very good year business-wise. That was a little daunting, but only in that you knew that this is the joy of theatre. You've got that one chance to make those people have the best time. And the more people there is, it's almost the more sort of pressure on you to make sure that they do have the best time. And I think we sent everybody out having had the best time. And as I say, we had a good time as well. And that reads so much from stage. So many people I spoke to said, you lot look like you were just having so much fun. And it is so much fun. It's not like work. Yeah, you work yourself to death. I was knackered at night.
3 show days, I bet, as well.
Just 2 in Sunderland. Just 2. Either sort of 2 and 7 or 1 and 5. Or that week of 10:15s and 7 PMs. And it was that, well, what do I do? Do I go home in between? That means taking it all off, then I have to put it all back on. So, you know, I had a lovely dressing room with a sofa which was about, you know, 2/3 smaller than I. So I was like, death becomes her by the time I sort of shoehorned myself onto the sofa and had a nap through the afternoon, you know. But it was a different type of tired. It was a sort of a mental tired, because you've thrown your all into something. I'm often like that when I come off stage anyway. So I'm quite like, when I'm not her, I am quite quiet. I don't really, I'm not the most demonstrative of people, or indeed talkative most of the time. And then something switches, and you just turn into this absolute, word whore, basically. So it was emotionally sort of draining, but in a great way. It's like going to bed when you're physically tired is fantastic because you'll sleep well. So I was sort of physically and probably more so mentally sort of knackered at the end of the day. And I enjoyed the drive home. I enjoyed the drive in. It's about 40 minutes to get from here to Sunderland. And it was great at the start of the day because you could, sort of gather yourself almost in the car. But then the drive home was lovely because it was just quiet, and then just come home and get into bed.
Well, this leads me on to my last question.
Mm-hmm.
Your dream pantomime. So you can be in it, you can be in the stalls watching it,
Mm-hmm.
you can choose the production, the theatre, and your cast can be alive or dead or a mixture of both.
Well, it has to be Cinderella, doesn't it? It's the fairy godmother of all pantomimes. It's the daddy Cinderella. So let's say Cinderella. Let's put it on at the Empire because it's lovely, Sunderland Empire. So fairy godmother. Barbara Windsor. I would have loved to have seen Barbara Windsor. God rest her. Yeah, Barbara Windsor as fairy godmother. And then who else have you got? I mean, I only knew my bits. I didn't watch anybody else's. I knew Scarlett was in it. I assumed she was playing a fairy godmother. I saw her frock hanging up. So right, you fairy godmother. Cinderella herself. Ooh, who could play Cinderella? Living or dead? Who could play Cinderella? Oh, I don't know. She needs to be youngish, doesn't she?
It's your panto. You could turn it on its head.
Oh no! Purist. Right, we'll come back to Cinderella. Prince Charming. Oh, Prince Charming would. Oh. I've got so many who it couldn't be. I'm more panicking who it could be. Prince Charming. Do you know who I think would be a wonderful Prince Charming? Sam Ebenezer. Now, Sam played the Dandini in our Cinderella, and he'd be a great Prince Charming because he's suave. He's Welsh. I've never seen a Welsh Prince Charming, so that's a selling point. Yeah, I'm going to say Sam, and he'd get on really well with Barbara Windsor. So, Sam, a Dandini. Oh God, you've got to go camp, haven't you? You've got to John Inman, and he's another one of these brilliant sort of bastions that I never got to see, and I would have loved to, a dying breed, the likes of which I don't think we'll ever see again, So you've got John Inman as your Dandini. We'd have a wicked stepmother. I think for the sheer comedy, and just thinking along the lines of John Inman, I would love to see someone like Molly Sugden as a really camp wicked stepmother. Like a really sort of viciously.
She could do the screwed up face.
Yes,
Couldn't she? Yeah.
Like a very jealous, petulant, wicked stepmother, and then your ugly sisters. I say David Dale and Kerry playing against Molly Sugden. just aesthetically, it would.
They'd be getting wig tips, wouldn't they, for the
Oh,
different colour,
completely.
different
Yes.
colour rinses every
Completely.
entrance.
Who else have we got?
So we got a baron. We need a baron.
A baron, yes, a baron. Oh, good heavens, a baron. Brian Conley. Because he's great on EastEnders at the moment. And I think he could play that really, like, warm, loving father, but cheeky as well. A bit matesy, Buttons. Tom Whaley. He stole the show at Sunderland. He's such a brilliant actor. What he doesn't know about pantomime is nobody's business. So I think Tom as Buttons, alternating with with Bradley Walsh. Could you have two Buttons?
Of course.
Bradley, amazing. And then of course we've got your sisters. No, we've got our sisters, haven't we?
And we need the cinders.
So we still need a Cinders. I don't know. Do you know what? Scarlett Moffat, because she's an absolute princess. I would love to see Scarlett play Cinderella, actually, because she would take no shit from those sisters.
That's the only trouble, isn't it?
She'd be the best and the worst Cinderella.
She'd give him a kick
ever.
where it hurts. Yeah.
She really, really would. And she's the right height as well for that, probably for David and Kerry. Yeah, that's a real mix-match. It's sort of mishmash, isn't it, of people. And I'm sort of caught out there. I think I knew that was coming as well.
You haven't cast yourself in it, which is interesting.
Because I would love to sit and watch that. I'd play one of
the backstage antics.
I'd play one of the ponies. I'd company manage it, actually.
Boaster.
Yeah, well, if the cap fits. Not on that, it doesn't. I'd company manage it. I think. Yeah. Probably very unsuccessfully with those wonderful people. But yeah, I think you've got a bit of everything in there, haven't you? You've got a bit of sort of up and coming. You've got a bit of the really established, the Brian Conley, the Bradley Walsh,
masters of the craft.
Absolute. And then you've got like legends, haven't you? As I say, the likes of which we'll never see again. The old camp, which is why I sort of doff me cap. I've taken it off my penis now. I doff me cap to the people who keep that sort of flame alive. Again, David Dale is to me just the epitome of that sort of never to be seen again breed of pure camp. That sort of old school camp. But David's doing his bit now, isn't he, with Jamie Riding is something of a protege, I'm led to believe. So that brings it down to another generation, doesn't it? And to keep that camp alive, I mean, you're saying before, that you expect pantomime to be just a huge explosion of camp and frivolity and all that kind of thing. It does need to be that, but it needs that. That again is part of the trunk of that tree I was talking about before, and then we can add everything else on. But
and it's exciting. And we're at a time now where we're going to see pantomime really evolve.
Yeah,
more than ever before.
But it must keep its feet on its foundations. That tree trunk has to stay there and let all these wonderful branches grow off it. But we need to come back. It needs that continuity in between generations.
And you're one of the new big stars to make it.
Well, I don't know about big star. But yes, I agree.
You're
yeah.
on the poster.
Hey, well, I don't know. I think you're only as good as your last show. I mean, I was fabulous in the last one. I might be crap this year, but I'm not planning on it.
I'm sure you will. Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking it.
Thank you very much. Take care.